not asking for help is actually a weakness, not a strength. So there's nothing, so it didn't feel like a brave thing, but it felt like a helpful thing to do. And it's all part of me being very grateful to still be here.
Three Founders Walk Into the podcast where you never know where you'll end up.
Hello, I'm Emma Campbell from The Coaching Point. I'm one founder.
And I'm Helen Wingrove-Sanders from Halfback, hiring for and building awesome companies. And I'm the other founder.
And together we're the two. And every week, one of us invites a founder that the other one's never met. They're the one. 3 founders, 2 hosts, 1 guest. And none of us know where we're going. Woohoo! Because our guest doesn't just join the conversation. They choose where we've walked into. We could be in a coffee shop in Rome, hanging in a treehouse in Costa Rica, or on the canteen on a Starship Enterprise. But we won't find out where we are until our guest arrives. We've got 3 questions, and the rest is just whatever happens when 3 founders sit down and get honest. This week, I've invited someone. I don't think you'll like them. I mean, I know you'll like them, but different energy completely. And this is when we find out where we are. So just to give you a little bit of kind of preamble, this week I'm bringing someone he's had a really interesting life, and he's been through all sorts of things. He's faced some real difficulties with health. And in the last month, he's actually been in the media in South Wales, at least, kind of supporting men's mental health issues. And then yesterday, something very exciting happened with him as well. But I'm going to let him tell you about that. So he is Gerwyn Tumelty. He's a CEO of Coron Projects, which is a project management company. But I'll let him introduce himself a little bit more.
Amazing.
Are you ready?
Well, we've got 1 founder, that's you. We've got another founder, that's me. So that's 2 founders. 3 founders walk into A with Gerwyn. Let's bring him in.
Fab.
Hey, Gerwyn.
Hello there.
How are you doing?
Hello there. Good afternoon. Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. So, Gerwyn, this is Helen. Gerwyn.
Hi, Helen. Good to meet you.
Hey.
Good to see you again, Emma.
Good to see you. And before we get any further into it, can you tell us where we are?
We are at a wild camp at dusk.
Oh, where?
So where all the tents are up, our boots are off, all the work for the day has been done. So we're sitting there now with a hot cup of tea or hot drink of some sort, and where we are is looking down the ridge at the climb that we've just come up. And in the far distance we can see where we've come from, and we're also looking up at the summit that we're going to be tackling the next day.
Wow.
Is this a specific mountain, or is this...
No, there's no specific place in mind.
Okay.
It's just I guess a visualization.
Yeah.
It's like a visualization of life, if I'm honest.
Hey, listen, you can't beat a mountain metaphor.
Right, exactly. Okay, and I'm hoping there's a fire. I'm thinking cup of tea with a fire.
The fire, yeah, it's as cozy as you like. I particularly like, the reason I've chosen it is that time of day when you've got a nice tiredness about you, you've had lots of fresh air, you've got a real sort of, I was going to say gentle ache in your muscles, but it might be more than that. But you've done all what you need to do for the day, and it's just time to sit down and reflect. And you're probably sitting, you can feel a little bit of a chill in the air because it's getting cooler. But you're cozy at the same time because you've got a nice warm fleece on. You've got your extra layers on ready for that evening. Your hands are curled around the mug, so they're nice and warm. You've probably got your beanie on or whatever to keep your head warm. And you're at that point where you're just nice and comfortable and ready for a conversation.
Oh my gosh.
How's that?
Sounds like a lovely place to be. Is that your kind of favourite place to be?
I love being outdoors. I don't get outdoors enough, I'll be quite honest. So that's why I'm using this opportunity to be virtually outdoors.
To imagine it.
But some of the best conversations I've had are in situations like that. Now, they might be on a normal campsite, not a wild camp, but I think the isolation of this place, the dramatic views, the actual elevation that we're at, just makes us feel energized, ready to go the next day.
And the stars, or like kind of, because you got no ambient light, so you've got tons of stars out there.
There's no mobile signal. There's no tech.
Oh my gosh. That sounds heavenly.
There's stars. You can't hear anything. And actually, we'll make it safe as well. There's not too many wild animals around that we're going to be concerned about.
Okay.
Like maybe big grizzly bears or anything like that.
Okay. So just the scorpions then, depending on...
Just the scorpions, yeah.
Scorpions. Okay. My head's in Wales, so...
To somewhere like, I don't know, like Grand Canyon, but that's not mountains, is it?
Yeah.
But Yeah.
Kind of the opposite.
Somewhere warm. But you did say we had fleeces on, so, although it does get cold in the Grand Canyon.
So I'm sort of thinking, I haven't thought about the actual location, in terms of the world, but if I had to pick one, it'd be the Dolomites, because I've not been there. But I read a lovely book called The Eight Mountains, and I forget the name of the author now, but it's a beautiful book, and it's one about friendship and brotherhood and things like that. But the pictures that book paints with words of the Dolomites in that region of Italy is absolutely, it's stunning. So, and I missed out on a trip last year to there, so I'm imagining that's what it would be like.
That sounds fantastic.
Although you say the book describes the Dolomites in Italy beautifully, I have to say, where you've taken us, actually, and we've never met, but there's something about the Welsh accent and the description, and you were leaning into that description so hard that actually made me feel quite, not tearful, but kind of like I could breathe out.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Lovely. Thank you very much. I'll take that as a compliment.
A good exhale.
Walking. So how have we got here then? How did we get here? We've clearly walked. We're carrying all our stuff.
Yes.
Can we use that as a metaphor for how you've got here?
Yeah. It's part of the sort of the choice of where we've walked into. I think as founders, we're always on a journey. We're always on some sort of climb. All right, there might be occasionally you have to drop down a little bit before you go up. But I'm a big fan of Daniel Priestley as well, and he talks about we're always stood on a mountain of value, and we don't even realise it sometimes. And I think it's important to take the opportunity now and again. Today feels like one of them, to actually look back and say, do you know what? We're doing all right. We've come a long way here. It's been, when you look back, some of that climb has been brutal. Some of it has been enjoyable. Some of it has been something like we've never experienced before. And when we're looking ahead to where we've got to go, exactly the same. And it can look daunting, but actually you just break it down into smaller chunks and, sections, hour by hour, minute by minute sometimes. And that's what you have to do, isn't it? So, and if you don't take the time to sort of, it's good to look ahead. It's good to always be moving forward, and you've got to do that. But occasionally, you just do need to take that point of time to reflect. So
I definitely think as founders, we don't stop and put our backpacks down and have that cup of tea around the fire with people that get it, with your people. As well.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and I'm fortunate enough to have good people around me, and that's one of the things that I did learn when I set up the business just over 3 years ago now, is find a board, find mentors, find coaches, find people that have climbed out those mountains before or are actually on the climb with you. It's, maybe at a very similar point, or they're a little bit ahead or a little bit behind. It doesn't really matter where they're at on that journey. There's a kinship, isn't there, I think, amongst people that are looking to grow something, looking to go on that particular journey. So,
absolutely. You said you started your company a few years ago now. Can you tell us a bit more about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO and founder of Coron Projects, which is a project management company based in Pontarddulais, which is west of Swansea in South Wales. It's been established now for just over 3 years, but I've actually worked for myself since 2019 as an independent contractor, as a project manager. A combination of a couple of staff jobs over that period of time, COVID, and some personal challenges, or health challenges, made me sort of choose to take a different path, to climb a different mountain, to have a go at something I think had been there for a long time. And in 2022, I made the decision to leave the employment I was in and to go back to working for myself. But I said to myself, I'm not going to go back to being a contractor per se, just me. The business plan was I'll take on too much work and have to bring others in to help deliver it. It's got a little bit more refined since then, but that was the basis of it. That was the start. So and it's been great. Do you feel now that it was a choice to go back and start your own business, or do you feel that at the time you had to, in order to live the life you needed to live for whatever reason? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of rose tinted glasses. No, I made the choice to start my own business, and this is why. Yeah. It was a scratch that I needed itching for a long time. And although I'd been working for myself as an independent contractor, it was not really a business, if you know what I mean. It's some people would say it is, but I was just going from long, full-time type of assignments, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, even 2 years at a time, which was sort of partly, it felt a little bit like being employed with a bit more independence. So I felt that I had to do something different. And at the time when I was triggered to sort of make the decision, finally, I realized I was pushing away from something. But at the time, I didn't really know what I was being attracted towards, being pulled towards. So I had to work that out, and I had to go on a little bit of a journey. And that's when I started putting people around me, saying, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? And I remember talking to a good friend of mine who does, he's running a very successful business. I'm actually doing some work for him now. And I grabbed him for a beer to pick his brains. And I said to him, I'm thinking of doing this. I'm thinking of growing the business and, taking more people on, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, oh, that's great. He said, what you got to do is make sure you know why you're doing it. He said, do you know why? And I said, yeah, I want to grow something. And he said, well, why don't you go down to B&Q, he said, buy yourself a plant, put it in a garden and grow it. He said, because if that's all you want to do is to grow something, it's a lot bloody easier than running a business. Maybe you don't know now, but work it out, he said, because when times get difficult, when that climb goes really hard, you've got to know why you are on that particular journey and why you're doing it. And he said, it will get difficult. And it was some of the best advice I'd had. So I spent a fair bit of time working out, not just from a business perspective, what it was going to look like, but actually getting that alignment with some of my personal goals, life goals, all that sort of good stuff. So hopefully that answers your question in terms of I was pushed away from something initially, but then created something that I could be pulled towards. I suppose my North Star type of exercise,
Yeah, I think a lot of founders actually are either running from something or running towards. They can be doing both at the same time. I say running, they can be slowly walking or they can be pushed towards something, So I certainly know with this business that I'm running now with Halfback, it was, and that's why I asked about the choice. Was it a choice? I made to start this particular business with a very clear definition of what I thought success was. Whereas in my previous business, I had 8 staff, I had lots of clients, we were making lots of money, but I was inherently unhappy. And so I think it's because I didn't have I had a business why, I had a business reason for existing, and my team, and we were all galvanized behind that. I didn't have a personal reason. I didn't know what I was doing, why for me, what was my why? And it's taken a while to get to that point. Actually, a while, but also some heartache and a bit of head scratching and doubt.
So how did you make that change, that transition, and how did you go about doing things differently?
Poor health forced that upon me.
Wow.
So I came to a point where I needed to have surgery, and that surgery turned out to be pretty life-saving. And when I left hospital after that surgery, it was a case of, what are you playing at? Get on with it. You've been given a new lease on life. Literally, it is a lease on life. Get on with it. And I'd already started a new business and thought I knew. And then I realized, actually, I need to build this for me first and foremost. And that's not selfish. My business needs to be what I need the vehicle to be. And I know where I'm heading. So that's good. But it took some serious poor health, which over the years, I wasn't well. Kept going to the doctor, it's probably because you're overweight, it's probably because you're a woman of a certain age, and la 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 la. Turns out, no, this is serious. So the thing that ultimately changed it was that surgery where I woke up and thought, oh, bloody hell. Okay, we need to get on with this because we only get a certain amount of time on this planet.
Exactly. Gosh, so much of that resonates with me.
Really?
Yes, yeah, very similar. The health part, and then that triggered it for me. I'd had some a condition which was extremely painful, and I was fortunate to have surgery. But it was while I was waiting, it was a period of really challenging. And that was between 2017 and 2019. What I hadn't realised actually was the emotional, the sort of the mental sort of impact that it had on me, and that didn't come out until 2022. So it all burst out, and fortunately, I was surrounded by some good friends, and I've actually captured some of this into a bit of writing that I've been involved with, which I can touch on a little bit in a second. But that was a pivot point, and it was. I knew that what I was doing, the path that I was on, was not the right path. Right. And it got to that crisis point because we're not very good sometimes at asking for help from people. And so that stems back from years and years and years ago, and hiding too much, not talking it through, etc. And I had to learn to do that pretty quickly after having that, what I would call a bit of a crisis point, really. So, and that's sort of, I went through that exercise of asking those hard questions of myself, but motivated and inspired by some good people as well. And actually some good therapy and support like that. So it's excellent.
I think it's really go on. I was going to say, I think it's really interesting that then you were talking about your why being, you're having a different why to your personal why. Is that the same for you, Gerwyn? Do you have a different business or a different personal, or are they intertwined? How does that look? They're intertwined.
Well, the one friend of mine said about the plant pot, that was great, find your why. Yeah. The other one said to me, who is a non-executive director, has run successful companies, was all over the world coaching MDs and all this, and it cost me a cup of coffee to have a chat with him, which was lovely. And he said to me, look, this is a really cheesy, cliche exercise. Get 2 pieces of paper, put life on the top of one, business on the other one, and just put yourself 5 years in the future, and what does life and business look like? What do you want it to look like? And just put it all out there. I used a mirror board because I was trying to get all tech savvy at the time, post-it notes on there, and I've still got it. And after setting up the business part, it is intertwined, to answer the question. They are complementary. And I think what resonated with me, Helen, when you were talking about that, is if you don't get that right at the start, and I've seen that happen to people as well, then, you're in conflict, really, aren't you? And something's going to suffer. But I think once you've laid that out and you can see what good looks like in your own mind, then you start sort of, I like the expression, the sort of the conscious mind sets the plan, but it's the unconscious mind that actually goes and gets the plan.
Yes.
Delivers on it. So that was really useful. And I ended up, when I'd set the business up then and started getting people involved, one of the first sort of team meetings we had, I put that up on the board and I said, this is where I'm going, so, and I think that resonated with people that were in that meeting because they could see, oh, right, okay. And actually it gives you, when opportunities come up or threats or risks or other things come along that path, you can make decisions so much easier because straight away, your gut is telling you whether it's aligned with the journey that you're on or not. And you go off the path a bit now and again, coming back to the analogy, but you know where you're heading and you need to get to a certain elevation. Now, you might end up, the wild count might not be exactly in the place, but it might be a few hundred yards to the right, but you're still making your way to the next summit type of things.
Yeah, or it might be a little bit lower down. And then if you haven't done the work first, it's that, like you say, the conscious versus, conscious and unconscious. So I had plenty of unconscious mindset going on in the previous business.
Yeah.
It just happened and it was all great without a business plan, which is mad. Imagine what that business could have been with a business plan, but also with the conscious thinking if I thought about it. So this time around, you're right. You're a very expensive coach. It only cost you a coffee. Probably
is brilliant.
But life and business, I consciously had to look at life first.
Yeah.
Because I was at that point in my life of what on earth what have you been doing?
Yeah.
What are you up to? And yes, you're going to have to hurt a little bit. You're going to have to really question yourself as to what you want going forward before you can even construct what a business would look like to support what that looks like going forwards.
Yeah.
Now, whether I'd package it up the way that you did and show it to my team, I may not. Well, I'm talking about it now, so maybe. But
it's time.
It's the time. Thank you for the counselling. So, I do think people join companies. So your team joining you, it was probably quite refreshing for them to see someone who knew themselves well and how it translated into business and vice versa. Because I think very often, certainly from my line of work with helping small companies to grow really well by hiring brilliantly, hiring awesome people as well.
I like that.
Where those people also know what they stand for, what they want from life. It's not just, I need a job. It's, I need a job, but it needs to be in this kind of company with this kind of person at the helm who knows themselves, who's done the work.
Yeah.
And so it all kind of feeds in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's really, really cool.
We work in the engineering construction sector. My background is I'm actually ex-Royal Navy and chartered engineer, moved into project management, and this is now my 4th career, so business owner. I've been desperate to get out of I was an engineer in the Navy as well. I've been desperate to get out of engineering and project management for years, so this is my way out, actually.
Done it. You've done it.
Sort of.
You're on the outside now.
I won't share this with any of the clients, though. That's any links to the clients. No, I'm only joking. So we work closely with, and you can imagine the profile of the individuals that work in those sectors, particularly on large engineering, procurement, construction jobs, site-based. It's very male-dominated, testosterone dominant. I've worked in some companies where it just, it cuts straight through you in terms of the toxicity and some of the things going on. And one of the reasons for having my own business is, one is I never want to work for anybody else again, as a staff person. So that's quite an easy one. But the other one is to create an environment that I'm free to be who I am as well. And if people don't enjoy that, or don't like that, then they're welcome to not get on the bus, type of thing, And I love that, that expression. And it's finding the good people to get onto the bus and putting them on in the right seats and all that is all part of that particular journey. I shouldn't say bus now. We're meant to be on a hike up a hill, aren't we? So it's finding the right group of people to go on that hike with. It's not buses. It's no buses on this hike.
We could even say, the right group of people that actually, when you're struggling, they might just carry your backpack for you. It's that kind of. If you had to, you don't want the people that are like, well, it's not my backpack. My job description. Yeah. There is so much freedom, isn't there, when you start your own business, where you get to choose, if you've done the work first, who you want to surround yourself with, which is really cool. And so you have a team now of how many people?
Well, it's a sort of, I got only one member of staff. Right. There's 2 of us, and it's a fractional model. So we're using freelancers, consultants, contractors to either deliver the work, or there's some delivering the work, and we're delivering different types of work now as well. So we've gone beyond just to take on too much work and get more people in to deliver it. We've actually defined some services and diversified slightly as well, and there's still a plan to diversify further. So it was just quite exciting. But I'm also, there are people that help me, help the business, that are helping with the growth side of it and the development of the business and product development as well. So development service.
So I'm going to ask the question again, because what's really interesting there is that you went straight to, I've only got 1 member of staff.
Yeah.
Question was, how big is your team?
So I would say we've got on our WhatsApp group now, there are 9 of us.
Right.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean everybody's busy on Coron stuff all the time. So there's a couple that's a bit quieter for them at the moment, but they're there, and I know when the opportunity comes up, they'll be in. It's keeping them close, but because they're freelancers and contractors and business owners in their own right, then they're portfolio working, so they've got other clients as well. And I'm fortunate that it's important to me to keep the communication going with the team, and when opportunities do come along, it's to sit them down first and say, I'm not a big fan of over-promising and under-delivering. I'm not really the Richard Branson type. There's a part of me that wants to say yes, yes, yes to everything. But I'm not that type of hustler, I guess. I do want to sort of help the individuals and the companies, the teams that I'm working with. So it's important to me to sort of get it right from the start, both in terms of what they need, what they want, what we can do. And I always say to the team or to the client, we enjoy using the top 5, 10% of who we are, rather than just put bodies or bums on seats to turn cogs and wheels. It's that type of, so if there's a problem to solve or an opportunity to explore, it's pulling a team together to deliver it, to develop it sometimes and deliver it. So, working with the team in that respect and finding out what they can offer into that opportunity, whether that's time, whether that's expertise, it could just be a bit of advice, whatever it is, or who else do we need to bring in that we don't know about. So that's the way that I like to approach things. And it's quite organic at the moment in terms of what we're doing, but we will be pushing harder from a marketing perspective this year.
Well, let's help with that then. So who would your ideal client or company or project be to be pitching for? So
we're currently working business to business primarily. And we've got 2 sorts of, although we're working in the engineering and construction sector, it's primarily engineering companies we're working with. And some of them are manufacturing, some of them are precision engineering, some of them are more fabrication, heavy industry, and then working in much larger projects. So they tend to be tier 2 or subcontractors working to principal contractors or prime contractors and working on major infrastructure projects such as LNG terminals, liquefied natural gas terminals, gas-fired power stations, could be refineries, could be renewable energy projects, and I have got involved with some marine energy work as well in the past. So it's quite diverse, but the ideal client probably has a business of 80 to 100 people, maybe more than that. They've got a decent amount of turnover to be able to, or need to have a project team or project professionals that are working together as a team to deliver projects. And they may well have gaps in the organisation, or they've got problems with their systems or processes. So we can come in and our Ascent service is a contract and consultancy service, so we go in there to do the doing. And what we've evolved over the last 18 months, and we've started delivering it since the middle of last year, is a new service which is training and coaching. So that's working with teams that they've already got, individuals that they've got, and rather than them fill gaps, well, maybe there are gaps to be filled, but they've opportunities to come up, or they've got some challenges with some of the projects that are already on. But what they want to do is they want to invest in that team, and they want to help them come up a level. And a lot of what we've found in these SMEs is that a lot of the project professionals have come up, say, through the tools. They're loyal to the business. They love where they're working. They want to continue working there, and they need a bit of investing in. And it can happen where when a business is really busy, the managing directors are, flying ahead, trying to get the work in, etc. That development of the team can lag a little bit.
Yep.
So we'll go in there to help lift them up, and I like the term leveling them up, so they can go toe to toe really with the contractors or even the big clients on a project management perspective. So we're helping them build their confidence around delivering projects. That's the main thing. So they're the two business to business sort of streams. That training and coaching is called Basecamp.
I was just going to ask that. So you've got Ascent, you've got Base.
Yeah. We've had a lot of help as well. So when I talk about the team, beyond that, there's another circle of so we've got some brilliant sort of brand company that's helped us with the website creation. They're based in Bristol. We've actually building a team where we've got some digital marketeers and bits and pieces in, but we're thinking about that journey, and actually, there are good suppliers that you can't do these things alone, can you? And there's just not enough hours in the day or the week to be able to do it. So we've thought about it. And if you don't mind, the other part then we haven't launched yet is a B2C offering. So we're developing some really good stuff in the B2B space, so around frameworks, whether that's technical frameworks, project management type stuff specific for SMEs in the engineering world. We're also developing frameworks around self-awareness, self-management, self-leadership, and we've got some jazzy names for both of them as well.
Great.
And that, by building them, we're actually creating a lot of resources and assets that we want to repackage, rework, and share directly to project professionals on a B2C basis in a self-serve model, digital platform, subscription type arrangement where we can then help them with other elements of their career or life or challenges that they may be experiencing in some of these male-dominated, toxic, testosterone-filled environments. And not everybody in these, bear in mind, not everybody is male, but it just so happens that I think our target audience, they tend to be. So.
Was that something that you'd always had in mind to do? Like when you in 2022, when it was all kind of, changing for you, was that like a long-term vision that you had then, or has there been a kind of evolution from that to this point?
Oh, that's a lovely question, Em, because actually it's, if somebody just sat me down in 2022 and said this is what the beginning of 2026 looks like, I would have just said, you're having a laugh, aren't you? No. So the answer is no, it wasn't right. We're going to do all this good stuff. It has evolved, and it's evolved through when I look back, and we're at the campfire now looking back, and I look back at the people that I've been on the journey with. They've been influential in helping draw out to me what maybe I'm good at, what maybe I enjoy, and what the people around me are good at doing as well. And we've sort of harnessed that. We worked with creation on defining some of these services and products, but we'd already done a bit of work internally to say, not only are we good at delivering the contracting and the consulting piece, when we're working with companies, we're doing it by accident at the moment. We're training and coaching people. I even find conversations with the directors and leadership teams, because of the experiences that we've had, and we've worked at lots of different levels. I have worked lots of different levels throughout my career. It offers a different view on things. So I've coming back to the 8 mountains actually in the Dolomites. It talks about the metaphor there is that there's people that they go and climb lots of different mountains, and then some people will just stay on the same mountain and get very, very good at that. And actually, we're there helping the people that are on that single mountain, that they don't have the same perspective of even their own mountain, because you've been all the way around it on all the other summits, and you're looking at this mountain and they can't see it all, but they're on it. So that's the type of thing, we end up training and coaching people that are on their mountain with them to help them on their journey, because we've got just a different perspective. And what's exciting about so you didn't ask what the name of the B2C offering was. Pathfinder.
Very good.
So yeah, it might be a bit cheesy,
I would think Sherpa, but
Yeah, Sherpa. But it's really to help take all that good stuff and help those individuals on their journey. It actually removes the gatekeepers as well. So it removes the directors, the owners of businesses that decide whether or not their teams get trained. Individuals, if they want in the future, can come straight to us, and it'll be reasonable subscription levels, really. But the opportunity to dabble with some other really useful products and services. So watch this space on that one.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine a lot of these SMEs are given training, a training budget may not be very big, but they might be able to use that for whatever reason, whatever training they like. Yeah. Or it might be people that you are already on the leveling up. Leveling up? Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, on that program. They might leave that employer, go somewhere else, but want to take that support with them.
Yeah.
So that's just 2 things. And then there's so many project managers that you could reach with this.
Yeah. And we're the journey that I went on, and maybe this is the piece coming back to your question, did I predict it looking like this? And I thought, well, no. And I think because of the journey with the people that I've been on, and I've invested a lot of time in myself, even since 2022, whether that's through reading books, listening to podcasts, audio books, just having an appetite for learning, because I have not been on this climb before. I've not tried to build a business before. So I'm just sucking it up like a sponge, really. But knowing where I want to get to is like some things will fit, some things won't. I have gone down some routes which have proved to be the wrong way, and I've had to come back, and it's been a bit of a waste of time and a bit of waste of money. It's all part of the learning. When you're then on the journey, and you can look back and those parts that you didn't get right, it gives you a bit of humility, and you can really share that with the rest of the team or whoever you're working with, and say it's okay to make mistakes and to fail, as long as you keep moving forward and heading for the goals that you've got, those new summits.
I'm gonna ask you a question, which is a bit cheeky, because I don't quite know. So there was a little bit of hype around our little circle in last month that Gerwyn was on TV, and I didn't see any of the stuff that was on TV.
You didn't tell me he was famous.
I think I've used up my 15 minutes of fame, actually.
No, I don't think so. You've still got a few more.
Yeah, so it's related to what we were talking about, actually. So the health challenge that I had was a condition called trigeminal neuralgia. So it's facial pain. Yeah. And it was we didn't know what it was. The doctor didn't know what it was. Dentist didn't know what it was. And anyway, it took a while to get a diagnosis. But yeah, it was an awful period, really, and it wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for family and what have you. So I had the operation then microvascular decompression, which was to take the pressure of the capillaries that were wrapped around the trigeminal nerve inside the brain away, and to allow that nerve to move freely or not be obscured in any way, which is causing the pain. And that was successful. But it was a dark time before then. all those after I'd had the surgery and recovered from the post-operative sort of condition, it all just went away, and I was like, oh, I had loads of energy, ready to go. Everything that I'd gone through had been just boxed away. But in 2022, then, combination of, I don't know, stressful time, financial challenges, in a staff job, post-COVID, it all got on top of me a bit, and then that's what caused me to have a sort of a crisis point. And it wasn't until that happened with my friends, and I've also written a chapter for a book which was launched this week, actually, and we celebrated the launch of that on World Book Day yesterday.
And what's the name?
It's called Untold and Retold. So it's a book that Debs Penrice has pulled together, which was a mutual friend of ours. So
yeah, Helen knows Debs as well.
Right, okay, yeah, and so she's awesome, and she came up with, Debs is part of the Coron team as well, so that's that influence on me in terms of writing, sharing, delving into those stories that we've got to help others, but to help ourselves as well. Has been really helpful, and in terms of the business, it's just helped me sort of write more as well and think about copy and how we communicate and all those good things. And when she said she was going to be setting this project up, I was like, oh, I might be interested in that, because I do want to become a writer, and I do want to write books in I guess in a very Daniel Priestley style, a key person of influence and all that sort of stuff. But it would fit really well with the business, the frameworks we're putting together, and I guess the journey that I've been on. So I said to Debs, I'm in, and I was launched
fantastic
this week. Yeah, so that's good news. But it was 2022, I'd spoken to my friends, and then I spoke to my wife for the first time about how I'd actually been feeling. But it wasn't until 2024 that I spoke to my parents and my kids. And it was around that time that I started talking about it more publicly and openly. And I did put on, I think, it was World Suicide Prevention Day in October 2024, and I put a post on about that then, so people got to know. And a friend of mine who happens to be a BBC journalist who lives in the town contacted me in 2025 for a cup of coffee or whatever, and he said, tell me a little bit more about this. So we got into it, and he said, would you like to do a story on it? So anyway, I said, yeah, if it helps other people, yeah, definitely, because it was very difficult to diagnose, and actually I don't think the support is there. The awareness isn't there, so the support isn't there as well as it should be. So it all went quiet, and then he got back in touch at the beginning of this year, and he said, I'd like to do that story if you still want to do it. And there we are. We ended up being filmed, being interviewed. I did it in Welsh and English. So, and it caused a lot of interest, a lot of awareness. I'd found out actually that the story had been reproduced in a few other languages and shared on other news channels across Europe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it had picked up by the BBC Health page on their website, so it was seen all over the UK as well. And the charity itself, who I'd kept quite close along the journey, they had the most amount of hits and inquiries in one day that they'd had in weeks or months. So
how does that?
Quite overwhelmed. Pardon?
How does that feel? And you said overwhelmed, but did you feel? Yeah,
it felt good because, and a lot of the comments that I had back was, "Oh, that's very brave of you," and I was like, "No, I don't feel very brave because I've gone through a journey where actually I'm quite comfortable talking about it. It doesn't feel like bravery when I reflect on it with my cup of tea, sitting there with my beanie on and my jacket on, and I'm looking back. I actually think that at the time I was probably very weak, and because I wasn't able to get the story out or to share how I was really feeling." That isn't strength. That's weakness, really. So I the way that I've dealt with it is to say, yeah, I've got over that now. I can square that circle. But it's encouraging people at the time when it's happening to speak out, to look for help, to ask for help. Not asking for help is actually a weakness, not a strength. So there's nothing. So it didn't feel like a brave thing, but it felt like a helpful thing to do. And it's all part of me being very grateful to still be here. I think that's the main thing.
It's really interesting, isn't it, that you kind of, I think you've both spoken about, you go through something and you kind of think you're through it. And then all of a sudden you hit that, you hit a crisis point, almost like, like you said, you had all these things happen and then COVID happened and then the crisis came. So it's like you've gone through all the hard stuff, but it hasn't processed and you haven't managed to get through it. And isn't like, I've worked with a couple of people now where they're like, this is the time where it should be easy. You know, I should be over it by now. But because it's almost like your body holds on to all of that pressure and that tension and keeps it until you're on an even keel and you're safe. And then you're in a point where you can release it. And that's when the real wobble comes, because then that's all the emotion and all of the physical kind of manifestation of all of that stuff that's kind of gone before.
Well, yeah, I mean, your cells hold on to pain. I mean, pain, especially that kind of pain. I mean, it's known as the suicide disease, isn't it? I think.
It is, yeah.
I mean, yeah, holding on to pain, especially when the medical people that are there to help diagnose stuff. I mean, I certainly felt like I was just being told, you're overweight and you're a certain age, get over it. Just go and lose some weight and you'll be fine. It turns out they were really wrong. But also it turns out that they would never have been able to diagnose what I had. So it's through no one's fault. But that physical elation I had and the mental elation I had of knowing I was right. I knew there was something really wrong with my body. It's now been fixed. Oh my God, I've got many more years ahead of me instead of 2 or 3. Okay, that's great. The physical side of it, then I had to recover from surgery, as I'm sure you did as well, especially surgery. But then your cells are holding on to all of that stress for however many years you had that for, to then maybe when you're safe physically, then, and the other factors as well. Yeah, for sure. Just on the weakness and the strength, I've never thought of it that way in terms of not asking for help versus asking for help, but then what you've done even further to strengthen that battery, as it were. You know, if your battery is so depleted that you can't ask for help, once you start asking for help, you start building up that battery. It never gets to 100%.
No.
I don't know anyone, unless you're Tigger, on 100%.
And it's probably not sustainable.
And it's exactly not sustainable. But maybe part of that process is every time you write about it, you talking about it today and sharing it with us today, actually, I've just got goosebumps. You sharing about it today just adds a little, 3 or 4% to your battery.
Yeah.
And then someone reads, your chapter in Untold and Retold, that adds. You don't even know it's added to your battery because the universe is just giving you that energy because you shared, what you went through. So it doesn't necessarily have to be you always having to ask for help because you've put help out there for other people.
Yeah.
And you're in bucket loads, really. Well, percentages at a time.
Yeah. One of the things you said there actually about, when you've got so little energy, it's so hard to ask for help. And I think you're right. And actually, it felt like that as well at the time, I must admit. And I didn't want to burden anybody. It was like, you don't want to, and I think, male or female, you don't want to burden anybody with or overshare and people constantly ask, how are you? And I would say about I'm fine. And you talk about the physical, you'd explain some of the pain and they'd be like, oh gosh, that's bad. And you'd be like, yeah, you don't know. Not even half of it.
It's bad.
Yeah, but nobody actually properly asked. And it's not a criticism of anybody necessarily. And I had, after I'd shared and opened up about it, quite a lot of people, including my wife, say to me, I never thought to really ask you how you were. And I said, whoa, hang on. I said, that it doesn't matter now. And even if you had, I would have lied to you.
Yeah,
that's where I was. I would have just lied to you because I wouldn't have wanted anybody burdened by it or worried more than they were already. So you just do all these sort of things at the time. And would it be different if it went to happen again? It probably would now. But if I wanted the clock back, probably not.
No.
So, but it's I think there's lots of other things that people endure in life and go through. It just all adds to our resilience, I think, and people do use that word a lot at the moment. But
it's on a poster behind you.
It is behind me as well, yeah. Excuse the spelling, though.
I wasn't going to say anything.
That's how it's spelled.
Yeah, I just got... There you are. Yeah, it's been up there for ages, and then I looked at it one day, I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. Another fail on that business journey.
No, it's a lesson.
It's a lesson.
Learn how to spell.
Learn how to spell. And
or ask one of your team to do it.
Get people to check, other people to check it as well. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot what it was, but resilience, and I think it can be overused, but you can't underestimate it as well. I think if you can learn from what you've been through and come out stronger at the other side, and then able to sort of share that with people, I think there's a real joy in that. And I think Coron gives me the opportunity to do that with a group of people that I can relate to, just because of my background and experience.
Yeah.
And hopefully it goes beyond actually just the type of sectors that we work in, and maybe even the type of individuals. So who knows?
Yeah.
Well, look, it's that time. We're developing a bit of a habit here to ask people about their favourite C word. I'm sure Emma's told you about this, so you can't use resilience because that starts with an R. And we've had courage, we've had coastal, and we've had, what was last week's?
You had commitment and curiosity.
Lovely.
Curiosity and
Curiosity.
yes. So you can't have any of those words.
Yeah.
So I put it to you then, Gerwyn, what would be your C word? So either describe how you're feeling right now in this moment, or after now speaking with us, or this week, or just life in general. What's your C word?
Well, the word came to me, and just as you said that, I had a shiver down my spine. Action, connected. Yeah.
Not Coron.
No, that would be too. It's here anyway, but I'm behind me. No, connection, and there's a really good book written by Dan Stanley. Actually, I think it's called Redefining Masculinity, and within that he talks about preserving your energy and some of the things you should look after. And it's quite, I know Dan, because of his military background as well, the whole book is very well structured. There's lots of frameworks, there's lots of acronyms and bits and pieces in there. But one of the ones that stuck with me in particular was how important it is to have rest, nutrition and movement. And then the fourth one was connection. So that's always been a good one for me, because when I was going through a period of, I guess, isolationless because, of what I was going through, I really missed that connection. And now I started after I'd opened up and realised the power of sort of people being able to help you and asking for help. That connection that you create with people, whether it's clients, whether it's people that can support you in delivering the value for clients, and just friendships and family and keeping all that going, I think it's become a really important part for me. And I just wish I had more time to reconnect with lots of other people, and to find new people. And I've taken to doing a lot more networking over the last 3 or 4 months, and I've approached it with a different mindset, which is around finding good people and having good conversations, but it comes from that connection.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, actually that is the key to networking, isn't it, from a business and a personal point of view, is just find good people, just make connections.
And there's a lot of good people out there.
Wow.
There really are.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Really nice to meet you.
Well, it's been a pleasure to meet you, Helen, and to see you again. It's been lovely. I've thoroughly enjoyed.
Really good. Can I ask a question about your company name?
Yeah,
Does it
certainly.
mean something in Welsh?
It does. So when I actually established the company back in 2013, it was my contracting vehicle, and I needed a name quickly because I just accepted a position on the project. And I thought I would like a Welsh name, but I would like something that can be pronounced by English people as well as Welsh people.
Notice I didn't say.
Coron.
Coron.
And Coron actually means crown. And it fits quite well with the brand, being like the top of the mountain or whatever, on the top and perched on the top. But yeah, the crown. So
wonderful.
Not that I'm, all royal and bits and pieces like that, but it's I love the word, and it fits nicely actually with what we're doing.
Very much so. Really great to meet you. Really nice to connect with you,
Thank
albeit
you.
online. And thank you for sharing as well. Your battery today has refilled a little bit just by sharing with us.
Definitely.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Feeling good. It's a Friday, and I'm looking forward to the weekend.
Absolutely.
Have a good one.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
3 Founders Walk Into the podcast where you never know where you'll end up.
What a great guest. His energy just is so peaceful and just
like exhale was like that, when you were saying it's like a big sigh out, exhale is just so calm.
And his description, the more he described where we were around that camp.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's something that I think I said this last week. everyone that we've spoken to, they're completely different personalities, completely different lives and stories, but they could all storytell.
Yes.
When we ask them, where are we? Three founders
Yes.
walking away. I mean, they take us there. They really lean in, and I really appreciate that. And then it sets the tone, which I really love.
He's in my sort of sphere, but I don't get to connect with him very often. So it's really nice to kind of get a bit, find a little bit more about him and his kind of what he's been, his journey, as much as that's got such an overused word, isn't it?
But it is a journey. We're heading uphill. Wow. Yeah.
And that it's not strong to share. There's a humility in that, right? But it's joyful for him to share. And that in itself, is a strength, isn't it?
And also gives him strength, I think.
Yeah.
Where before he recognises that he had no strength.
It's a really lovely reflection, isn't it? That he, and a reminder over and over again in all of these little sessions that we're doing, the really important piece is being with other people, sharing it with other people. This is just not a solo sport. We're doing this together. And it's such a human thing to want connection and to share stories. It's such a human thing. We've been sharing stories for generations, and we get out of the habit of doing it, so nothing passes down. I mean, this is such an important thing for so many people to hear, and to hear it with the energy and the hope.
And a great C word. Connection is a fantastic word for founders, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we surround ourselves with people that we connect with. We don't have to agree with them. We don't have to be doing the same thing. You don't have to be in the same industry. And actually, it doesn't have to be other founders, it doesn't have to be other business owners, but just having that connection and reconnecting with people that you've connected with, I think is really core to life, essentially. Yeah, very good. Wow.
I think it was a lovely week, and next week we'll have a different energy again. We're really taking all these different energies from all these different people, and it's just a beautiful thing. I'm really excited to see what Coron's doing next with the writing and the kind of advocacy for mental health. I think that's really important, but I think we've got a lot of good things to come from them. So thank you, Helen, for joining me, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Three Founders Walk Into A, the podcast where you never know where you'll end up.